I grew up out in the countryside, where you could ride your bike for miles and never see another person. Like most people, summer was always my favorite season. Still is, actually. But it's been a long time since I lived out there, and I guess some of the magic has faded a little. A lot of what made summer special for me was tied to life in the middle of nowhere. There was something about the warmth, the quiet, the emptiness. I loved it. It's hard to explain, but it made me feel isolated in a good way. Like I had my own little corner of the world. Like I could disappear for hours, and no one would even notice. Summer nights were always the best. The darkness gave me that sense of privacy and freedom that 16-year-old me craved. Back then, I had a friend named Taylor. She was a little more daring than me, always the one pushing boundaries. One random night in July, we decided to go stargazing. Just us, 2 bikes, and a bottle of wine. It wasn't the first time. We did that kind of thing a lot, until the night I'm about to tell you about. Looking back, it might have been one of the last times we ever looked at the stars together. We didn't really have a plan, just a direction. We wanted somewhere new, because the old spots had started to feel the same. Taylor said she knew a good place past the edge of town, a little secluded, kind of hidden. I didn't care much, as long as it was open farmland where no one would bother us. It was around 10 at night when we left. I'm not sure how long we biked, maybe 20-30 minutes, but we didn't stop until we were way past anything that looked civilized. At some point, Taylor suddenly stopped her bike and said, "We're here." I didn't really know what here meant, because there was nothing around us. No buildings, no fences, no lights. But honestly, it felt perfect. Just an open field, wide and quiet. Tall grass and a sky full of stars. We laid out the blanket and popped open the bottle with this tiny corkscrew Taylor somehow remembered to bring. It was cheap red wine, didn't taste great, but it worked. We lay there for a while, passing the bottle back and forth, naming constellations we half remembered. The goal was always the same: catch a shooting star. At one point, Taylor asked if I thought we'd actually see one. I told her probably not, but to keep looking anyway. Out here, they weren't that rare, but you still had to pay attention. Star or no star, we were having fun. The wine was kicking in, and I was starting to feel that nice, warm blur. It was one of those nights where time just stops existing. This part doesn't really matter, but it's one of the few things I remember clearly. There was this short moment that felt off, like time slowed down for a second. We were leaning back, and Taylor looked at me in a way that made me wonder if she wanted something more than friendship. I'd always kind of suspected that growing up, but it was just a thought, nothing more. That night, though, it felt stronger. I didn't ask, didn't say anything. People didn't talk about that kind of stuff where we grew up. Maybe I was just drunk. Maybe I imagined it. Either way, the moment passed. We started laughing about something dumb she said, and right then, we looked up just in time to see a shooting star. If you've ever seen one, you know that instant reaction. You just can't help but laugh or shout at the sky. We both laughed, and Taylor told me to make a wish. I don't remember what I wished for. Probably something stupid. We talked for a few more minutes, both kind of buzzing from that little spark of excitement. I closed my eyes for just a second, not to sleep, just to feel the breeze on my face, to settle into the calm. I swear my eyes were closed maybe 5 seconds, but when I opened them, Taylor was gone, completely gone. Her bike was gone too. Mine was still sitting next to the blanket, but hers wasn't. I sat up fast, thinking she was trying to mess with me. But even after turning a full circle, I couldn't see her anywhere. That's when this wave of fear hit me. The open field suddenly felt wrong, suffocating. The soft beauty of the night was just gone, replaced by this quiet panic. The stars looked dimmer. That's the part I can't forget. The sky was still there, but different, like someone had turned down the brightness or smeared something over it. The air felt colder too, not naturally colder, but like I had stepped into a different version of the same place. I know that sounds insane, but that's exactly how it felt. I pulled out my phone to check the time. 3 a.m. Exactly. That number burned into my brain and probably always will. I blinked a few times. It didn't make sense. It was just midnight minutes ago. I kept staring at the clock, wondering if I'd somehow fallen asleep. I knew I hadn't, but I couldn't be sure anymore. Would Taylor really leave me if I'd passed out? Number. No way. She'd never do that. I stood up, turned around, called her name again and again. Nothing. No answer. The only explanation I could think of was that she left me, for some reason. Maybe she got upset. Maybe she wandered off. But we hadn't argued. Everything had been fine. Really good, actually. I called her phone a few times, but it just rang. After that, I started crying. I mean, can you blame me? I didn't know what else to do. I grabbed my bike and started pedaling home, trying not to completely fall apart. That ride back felt endless. It was probably the most terrified I've ever been on a bike. I didn't stop until I reached my driveway, out of breath, shaking, still not understanding what had just happened. I went straight to bed. The next morning I texted Taylor first thing. I was expecting an apology, or at least some kind of explanation. But instead she asked me, "Where did you go last night?" I told her everything I remembered, how I woke up alone at 3 a.m. and figured she'd left me. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said she was the one who woke up alone at 3 a.m., and I was gone. She said she waited over an hour before biking home, angry and confused, thinking I'd ditched her. According to her, I'd vanished. And I was just as sure the exact same thing had happened to her. We went back and forth trying to piece it together, but nothing made sense. Neither of us had any memory gaps beyond that moment. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. Even though we both swore we'd tried calling each other right after waking up, there were no logs, no record at all. Eventually, we just dropped it, or pretended to. But I think we were both more scared than we wanted to admit. I know I was. For months, I'd lie in bed staring at the stars, thinking about that night. Taylor and I only went stargazing once or twice after that. Life went back to normal, I guess. But even now, I still don't have an explanation. My name is Kevin. This happened years ago, something I'd completely forgotten until recently. I was 19 at the time, during the fall of 2008, working nights at a small pizza shop on the edge of my hometown, Bridgewater, New Jersey. I didn't love the job, but being broke and having parents who'd lose their minds if I sat around unemployed, I couldn't really complain. It was one of those take whatever you can get jobs, slow shifts, sticky uniforms, and a beat-up delivery car that barely made it up hills. At least it wasn't my car. Small victories. Oh yeah, this isn't super important, but I should mention the pizza was disgusting. Seriously terrible. I still don't understand how anyone kept ordering from that place. Maybe because it was the only one open that late. The only good thing was that, because the pizza was so bad, or maybe because the shop was so far from town, orders were rare. Most nights were dead quiet. One night, I was counting change when the bell above the register chimed. An online order. A large pepperoni and mushroom pizza. I remember it clearly because most people just ordered cheese. The address was way out on the far edge of Bridgewater, technically outside our delivery zone. I was ready to reject it. But before I could, my manager Doug, a guy in his 40s who mostly sat in the back playing games on his phone, looked up and told me to take it. Said we hadn't had a single delivery in over an hour. I didn't argue. When the pizza was ready, I put the address into my phone's GPS and grabbed the box. At least it would kill 30 or 40 minutes. As I was walking out, I glanced at the printed delivery instructions Doug had stapled to the box. I hadn't noticed them before. They said, word for word, park on the side road next to the house, walk through the bush path, and knock only on the basement door. That caught my attention, but my 19-year-old brain found an easy excuse. Maybe they didn't want to wake the kids, or they had a dog that barked. Besides, all I could think about was how slow the night had been, and how much worse it would feel if I stayed folding boxes. So I went. The moment I stepped outside, though, something felt off. It was one of those early autumn nights that felt heavy, humid, quiet, and still. Like even the air was holding its breath. And there was this smell, a sour, rotten smell, like old compost mixed with hot asphalt. That's what the air felt like out there. The address wasn't toward downtown. It led the opposite way, out toward the woods. The drive should have taken about 25 minutes, but it felt longer. The roads were empty. When I finally got there, I realized I'd pulled up behind the house. The GPS had led me down a narrow side road that ran behind several overgrown yards. No streetlights, no porch lights. Every window was dark. I slowed down to double-check the house number because the place looked dead. No lights inside, no car in the driveway. Just a yard full of tall weeds and a half-collapsed wire fence. Still, I followed the instructions. I parked on the gravel shoulder, grabbed the pizza, and started walking up the slope toward where I figured the basement door would be. I had the pizza box in one hand and my phone's flashlight in the other. At the base of the house, I found it, a thick wooden basement door. I knocked once, waited. Nothing. Knocked again. Still nothing. I was about to knock a third time when something caught my eye. From the small window above the door, there was movement. A flash. Like something shiny had shifted inside. It was quick. If I hadn't been staring right at it, I would have missed it. I waited, expecting whoever was standing behind that door to finally open it. But before that happened, I saw headlights. 2 black unmarked vans turned onto the road and stopped right behind my car. My first thought was that I was about to get yelled at for trespassing. Then one of the van doors slid open and a man stepped out. Even from where I was standing, I could tell he wasn't in uniform, just regular clothes. But in the glow of the headlights, he lifted something and flashed it toward me. A badge. He motioned for me to walk toward him. As I did, I noticed he wasn't alone. More men were getting out of the vans. When I got close enough, he told me to stop and go back to my car. His voice was calm but firm. So I did exactly that. From inside the car, I watched as more men appeared. 5, maybe 6 total. All carrying flashlights. None of them spoke. They spread out, moving around the house slowly, deliberately, almost like they didn't want to be seen. No one knocked. No one said a word. After a few minutes, the first man, the one who'd shown me his badge, walked back to my car and crouched by the window. I rolled it down. He looked at the pizza box on the seat and sighed. Then he told me quietly that there was an ongoing investigation involving that property, a surveillance operation, and that I had shown up right as they were repositioning their vehicles. I asked if he wanted to see the delivery order, and he nodded. I showed him the app on my phone. The order had a number, an address, and a first name, Chuck. He copied the number down, thanked me, then looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Leave." Now I told him my boss would lose it if I came back with the pizza. He just shrugged, then repeated, "Go." Now that was all I needed to hear. I turned the car around as fast as I could and drove straight back to the shop. I never found out who Chuck was, or what was going on in that basement. And honestly, I don't think I ever want to. This happened just last year. I'm 40 now, married with 2 sons, ages 7 and 5. I work in insurance, which sounds boring, because it is. But we're stable, and that's really all I care about at this point in life. A few years ago, my dad passed away after a long battle with cancer. He left behind a beach house in Delaware that I had never actually visited, since he used to rent it out most of the year. The house wasn't fancy or big, but it had a great location, just 1 block from the boardwalk. My favorite part was the upper deck in the back, where you could see the ocean perfectly. After my dad died, we started going there every summer, using it as our little getaway. A week here, a weekend there. It became a small family tradition. My wife and I enjoyed it, but the kids absolutely loved it. They'd spend hours on the beach, riding bikes, exploring the town. It really felt like a gift, something my dad left behind for us to enjoy. This story takes place during one of those summer weeks last year. We went in mid-July from Sunday to Friday, when things were quieter and the beaches were less crowded. I remember that night clearly. It was Wednesday. The kids had gone to bed around 9:30 after spending all day in the sun, and my wife and I were sitting out on the back deck, playing cards and drinking wine. That's when our oldest, Jordan, came out. He looked uneasy. He said he kept hearing a scratching noise in his room, said it was keeping him up. I looked at my wife, put my glass down, and told her I'd go check it out. I told her to stay put. I figured it was just the house settling or something. It was pretty old after all. The kids didn't share a room, so I didn't want to wake the younger one up for no reason. I followed Jordan to his room downstairs, and he pointed to the wall near his bed and told me to be quiet. We both stood there for a moment, and at first, I didn't hear anything. But I didn't want him to think I didn't believe him, so I waited. Maybe 20 seconds later, I heard it. Faint, but definitely there. A soft scratching sound, exactly like he said. I crouched down and pressed my ear against the wall. It didn't sound like a mouse or anything moving through the beams. It was lower, closer to the baseboard. And then I heard it. Not an animal. Definitely not. It was the slow, deep sound of a person breathing. I jumped back, yelling, "Jesus Christ," before I could stop myself. And then, no joke, I heard this guttural, angry scream echoing from inside the wall. It was so sudden, so raw, that I screamed again, pure panic flooding my whole body. I grabbed Jordan's arm and yanked him out of the room. We sprinted down the hallway to get his little brother, Scott, who was still sound asleep. I didn't even let him wake up. I just scooped him up and ran. All I could think about was getting back upstairs to the deck where my wife was. As we hit the bottom of the stairs, I yelled for her, and that's when I heard another scream, this time closer. I turned around and saw a man covered in filth, charging down the hallway straight toward us. I nearly tripped trying to scramble up the stairs while holding both kids. Jordan, Scott, and I made it to the top and onto the deck just in time. Not even 2 seconds after I slammed the sliding door shut, the man crashed into the glass with full force. I honestly thought it was going to shatter. He started clawing at it like a wild animal, screaming, pounding, yelling things I can't even repeat. I pressed my whole body against the door and shouted for my wife to grab the kids and call the police. She pulled them back, covering their ears, trying to get them away from the scene. I just kept my eyes locked on the guy's face, blocking him from view as best I could. He was completely unhinged, like pure insanity. He started smearing something, dirt, blood, I don't even know, across the glass as he kept pounding. I had no idea how long I held that door shut. A minute, 5, it felt like forever. He had this endless energy, and it took everything I had just to keep him out. All I could think about was protecting my family. I was ready to fight him if the glass broke, but before that happened, the police finally arrived. They must have come in from the side because within seconds, I saw 2 officers inside the house rushing toward the guy. One tackled him from behind while the other helped pin him down. The rest of that night is a blur. After they got the man out and into a police car, the officers took my statement. Together, we tried to figure out how the hell he even got inside the walls, and how he got out so fast. Turns out the house had a crawl space I didn't even know about. There was an entrance under the back deck you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. From there, it led to a space that ran along the foundation, with a second access point through a loose panel inside Jordan's closet. I had no clue it was there. I'd never done a full inspection when I inherited the place. Hell, I didn't even bother renovating it. A few days later, a detective called me with more info. He said the man admitted to living down there for months. He'd found the crawlspace entrance during the off-season and decided it was going to be his new home. He said he planned to hurt us that night because we were disturbing his house. Apparently, he'd been stealing food from us, stuff we somehow never noticed, and from the neighbor's trash. We didn't go back for the rest of the summer. Not because we thought he'd come back, but because of the trauma. I couldn't bring my wife and kids there again for a while, and they didn't argue. I hired a crew to completely seal up the crawl space, and after that, I finally started to feel a little more at peace. We went back this summer, and I'm happy to say, everything's been normal, or at least as normal as it can be after something like that.